Hi, welcome to the last tutorial of this course. Last week we started with Chapter 8, Argumentative Essay. This is Part 2. Let's remember that in Part 1, we covered what the concept of argumentation is, the form of an argumentative essay, and 3 of the 6 elements of the argumentative essay. In this week's tutorial, we will be covering the counterargument, refutation, and call for action. Let's remember the organization or the form of the argumentative essay. In the introduction, you write a general background and then you should put the claim in your thesis. This is followed by 3 body paragraphs in which you put 3 reasons related to the claim that support the claim and prove your claim right. These reasons must be supported by evidence. We studied 8 types of evidence which you could be using. Finally, we have the last paragraph in the body which contains the counter-argument and the refutation. This is what we will be discussing in this tutorial. Finally, in the conclusion, we should summarize or restate the main ideas of the argument and follow it by a final thought that calls for action to be done. As you know, every issue that is controversial has different points of view, and these points of view discuss the pros and cons of the issue. Pros are positive aspects or positive features, that is, advantages, and cons are the negative aspects or the disadvantages. However, when you want to present an argument, you have to know both pros and cons and weigh between them so that your argument is strong. After knowing the cons and the pros, you have to decide whether you are with or against that issue. You also need to know the opposite point of view. Why? Because you need to provide a counter-argument. A counter-argument is the other point of view that opposes your claim in the thesis statement and the evidence that you present in the body paragraphs. It expresses the view of people who disagree with your position. In your claim, you expressed your own point of view. You have a position, you have a stand. However, there are people who object with that point of view. You have to mention their opinion in order to make your argument stronger. Just like when in a fighting game, the fighter should predict and expect the movements of the opponent in order to beat them. Similarly, in an argument, you have to be prepared for the opposite point of view so that you reply to it and refute it. The counter-argument in an argumentative essay is introduced in a new paragraph separately after discussing all the warrants. Therefore, now that you discussed the counter-argument, you should present the refutation immediately after. The refutation is the part that disproves the counter-argument. It answers or responds to the ideas expressed in the counter-argument in order to prove them wrong, illogical, irrelevant, or untrue. So, you present the counter-argument and then you reply to it with the refutation. This refutation makes your argument stronger. Therefore, the refutation should come right after the counter-argument in the same paragraph. Use a transition to introduce it, a contrast transition, and keep in mind that you should always respect other people's opinions and points of view, so you should never be mocking or ridiculing the opposite point of view or making fun of others. Let's look at some examples of paragraphs with counter-argument and refutation. Last week, we discussed the topic of plastic surgeries, if you remember, and we read an introduction and 3 body paragraphs about the disadvantages of plastic surgeries for cosmetic reasons. Reason 1 was that cosmetic surgeries cost a lot of money. Reason 2, that they have complications, physical complications. And finally, that we need a lot of time to recover from plastic surgeries. Now that we have the claim and the reasons, we should provide a counter-argument and a refutation. Let's see what the writer wrote. On the other hand, there are people who believe plastic surgeries for cosmetic reasons have advantages. So here we have an opposite point of view. One major advantage is the younger look they provide an individual with. Cosmetic surgeries help a person get his or her desired appearance, increasing their self-esteem. Here we have the counter-arguments started with a contrast transition because it is providing us with an idea that is opposite to what was mentioned before. This is what other people believe. Therefore, this is the counter-argument, the opposing point of view, that plastic surgeries have advantages. And then we provide the reasons why these people who are against our opinion believe so. So it's the younger look, desired appearance, self-esteem. Now I'm moving to the refutation. I want to prove all of these ideas in the counter-argument irrelevant. First, I give an acknowledgement, that is, respecting the other opinion. It's true that they have certain logic or truth in what they said. Nevertheless, a contrast transition here because I want to respond to them and prove them wrong. Then I give my argument again, which is the refutation. Nevertheless, satisfying results might cause addiction. Here I mentioned that although it might be satisfying, it actually causes addiction, and it might affect the patient with BDD, which is body dysmorphic disorder, which means continuously finding flaws and faults in one's appearance. Here, my refutation uses logical appeal and an expert's opinion in order to refute the counter-argument. Let's look at another example related to the other topic we discussed, which is organ donation. The writer was with organ donation and said that it is very important. The first reason was that it gives us a second chance to live, it improves the patient's quality of life, and finally it allows advancement in medical research. So, now the writer has to present the other point of view, that is, people who are against organ donation. We started with a contrast transition. However, some opposers believe that organ donations can prolong the grieving period of a family. Grieving period means the period of being sad and anxious and worried about the family member, knowing that you will lose the member with death, as these donations do not occur unless a person is declared brain dead. The process of life support can make it feel like a loved one is still alive, and when there is presence of life, there is often hope, and having hope can make the grief even stronger. Here the writer presented, using a contrast transition, the counter-argument, that is, the opposing point of view. People are against organ donation because it makes the period of being sad longer. That is because it gives us hope. However, as a writer, I want to prove this point irrelevant or illogical or not enough. Therefore, as a writer, started with a contrast transition, which is although. That might be true, the acknowledgement. This is true, it does extend the period. However, organ donations can actually help during the grieving process by offering a sense of closure. Organ donation offers the family of the sick person closure, that is a chance to say goodbye, etc. In addition to this, it gives meaning to the death of the loved one, that their life was meaningful and that they were able to make another human being alive by donating their organs to them. And this is the refutation. Notice here that emotional appeal is provided in the reasons to make the refutation as a reply to the counter argument. Now we move to the last part, which is the conclusion of your essay, which should include the call for action. The whole purpose of argumentation is to make your readers do something about the topic and be convinced or persuaded with your opinion. Therefore, in the conclusion, you want the reader to take action. The goal of your whole argument is to prove the claim right. Now that is the time to present what you want the readers to do. What do they need to do? Therefore, the call for action comes in the conclusion after the restatement or summary or both. Be careful that you should not be using imperative forms, that is, commands or orders. To do this, you must use modal verbs, and we will see the following in the examples. We often see this indirect call for action in advertisements and commercials in the media. Let's look at some examples from famous products. For example, Pampers. Look at this cute advertisement. It shows a mom and a little boy, and what it says here is love at first touch. Here we have a kind of emotional appeal, the relationship between the mother and the child. Now, what does Pampers want viewers to do? In an indirect way, Pampers is encouraging viewers to buy Pampers instead of other types of diapers. Why? Because of this emotional appeal, it might be attractive to the viewers. There's no sentence that says you must buy Pampers now. Another example is this one for Sky Sports News. They used someone famous, who is David Beckham, in order to promote their product and encourage people to subscribe to their services. Why? Because Beckham is a football player that is related to the topic. So it's a kind of an expert's opinion or expert's testimonial. Here, let's look at an ad that is related to a social aspect. 77% of Black students read below grade level in Minneapolis. School choice matters, paid for by Better Ed. And here we have the source of the statistics. So statistics and emotional appeal is used in this billboard. Why? What do the billboard creators want? They want the viewers or the people of Minneapolis to make a change about Black students' lives and their education. Therefore, in an indirect way, we see how commercials and advertisements call viewers to take action. And this is what you will be doing in your conclusion. Let's see an example. In conclusion, it might be true that plastic surgeries make individuals look flawless. However, such surgeries done for cosmetic reasons bear numerous disadvantages. Like, here we repeat what was said before, therefore there's a kind of a summary of the effects or disadvantages of plastic surgery. And then people are becoming more addicted to plastic surgeries, etc. They are unaware of the serious disadvantage of these surgeries. Therefore, I need to call for action. The media must also shed the light on how beautiful traits enhance relationships, communication, love, and peace all over the world. Notice how a modal verb was used, which is must. The media must shed light on how beautiful traits and stop focusing on looking good. Let's look at the other topic, which is organ donation. To conclude, organ donation can be a beautiful light in the midst of a tragedy because it saves lives. Here I'm doing a summary: improves quality of life and contribute to in medical researches. And then I shift into presenting my call for action. Without the organ donor, there is no story, no hope, no transplant. But when there is an organ donor, life springs from death. And here there is a quote of an expert. And finally, there is the call for action. Health organizations and political parties should arise. A modal verb should, with the verb raise, is used, and support awareness campaigns about the importance of organ donation. This is the call for action. I will pause here, and in part 2, we will be having a guided and an independent activity and a view of the whole essay. Thank you.